video series. Today we're going to take a more detailed look into where to keep your small liveaboard boat. There are basically three options, as I mentioned in the first video, and that's Marina yacht clubs, somebody's personal dock, or at a wet mooring. That is either a permanent buoy or at an anchor full-time. When traveling, most people use a variation of marinas and anchoring. First, I'm going to look at marinas and yacht clubs. These are your most expensive options, but also your most convenient and secure. They can range from super expensive, where you'll find super yachts, to poorer working class marinas. The high-end marinas can grant you such niceties and amenities as tennis courts, golf courses, expensive restaurants, and serious security for your boat, which I won't lie, it's very nice. But these type of super high-end resort-type marinas frown on liveaboards. In fact, at that level, most won't allow them at all. At the other end of the spectrum, we have the working marina. These can be great because they rarely have a problem with liveaboards. They allow you to work on your boat whenever you feel like it. However, because they are working marinas, they tend to be a little bit more run down, for lack of a better term. They may have facilities like showers and laundries, but they sometimes can be a little scary to use. They usually are the cheapest option for marina, but they can be noisy and not that secure. I have stayed at some marinas for short periods that the docks were so rickety that when you walked on them, you were scared you were going to fall in, especially if you're trying to balance with provisions in your hands, and you definitely want some kind of electrical protection before connecting any kind of shore power. But being at a marina that will let you do your work on your boat without filling out a bunch of forms and getting permission first is a good thing. Not being hassled for being a liveaboard is a great thing. Some marinas will add a fee for living aboard, but it's usually not that high. I'd love to give you a price range of how much marinas and yacht clubs charge, but it differs so much by style of the marina and by geographical location. The same style marina you find in a state like Florida or a city like New York can charge you the same for just 1 month that a marina in a cold climate would charge you for the entire season. Personally, I think somewhere in the middle is the right answer. Not too fancy, but still has whichever required amenities you need. For example, laundry, decent shore power, and a marina that does have some security, like proper gates on the docks. But maybe not an armed security guard on each gate, which yes, I have seen. Another option when it comes to marinas is co-op marinas. These charge you a large membership fee up front, and a small amount each of the following years. This is usually the cheapest option. However, they do require you to do some work. For example, there's one close to me that requires that you help when it's time to put the docks in for the season, and then again take them out at the end of the season. And it also requires you to do 40 hours of security work, which is super easy since you already live there. I have mentioned quite a few times about seasonal marinas, and the general thought is you put your boat in the spring and you remove it in the fall. However, some marinas will have or let you use devices to keep the water from freezing around your boat, letting you stay all year round. These come in two forms, either a bubbler system, which is a compressor that forces air through tiny holes on a hose that's laid on the ground under your boat. These bubbles then rise up, bringing warmer water with them, preventing the water from freezing. And the other type is a propeller deicer. These are a bit simpler and more common. It's basically a large electric motor with a propeller on it that attaches below the boat or the dock, then it forces the warmer water up. The problem with both these systems is that they use a large amount of electricity, and I think all marinas will charge you a lot extra for that power. Oh, and speaking of power, some marinas charge you just for the season, some for the month, and some have meters right next to your boat. That's usually the most expensive. There are a lot of people, including me, once upon a time, who still live aboard their boats even in the wintertime, even in the coldest climates, but that is a topic for its own future video. One last thing I have to talk about when it comes to marinas as far as locations go, that is, marinas that are in a tidal area, especially where there's high tides. There are marinas I have seen, especially in New England and on Canada's east coast, that have to deal with extremely high tides, and this requires something special. I've seen poorly designed marinas where the boats still have to tie to a regular dock cleat, but even with spring lines, they have to tie so loosely for the boat to be able to rise and fall. And then there's a ladder connected to the dock so you can climb down to your boat at low tide. A little better design I have seen is instead of cleats, they have posts that you tie onto, and your line slides up and down the posts with the tides. However, you still have to jump or climb down to your boat. The best have really long entrance ramps leading down to floating boats. Then the ramps and the docks go up and down with the tide, and your boat just stays nicely tied on. Okay, enough about marinas and yacht clubs. The next place to stay is at a personal dock. If you're lucky enough to know somebody with their own dock and they don't mind you staying there, then count yourself lucky. However, most private docks do not have any amenities to speak of, no shore power, etc. If you don't know anybody with a dock and you're still looking for a private dock to stay at, either permanently or while traveling, there's still an option out there for you. There is this website called peershare.com. It's similar to Airbnb, but for boaters who are looking for private docks. They even have options for liveaboards like fresh water or if maintenance is allowed. Personally, I have not used their service, and I believe it's more popular in areas like Florida. But you never know. Check it out. Okay, last but certainly not least is using a wet mooring. This is obviously the cheapest option. You could stay at a mooring field for a fee, which is still cheaper than a marina, or you can use your own anchor or mooring buoy. Most municipalities frown on you using your own mooring buoys because of how they're set. They need to be extremely strong and stable, so I've seen people use old engine blocks to huge chunks of cement. Neither is something the municipality wants to have to remove after you're done using it. If you choose to use your own anchor, make sure it's larger than you would normally use, and the same goes for the road that leads to it. There is nothing worse than leaving your boat to go to work or something and come back and find it's dragged, or even worse. You will have to find a way to get back and forth between land and your boat, like a dinghy. The problem with this is you're going to need a place on shore to keep it securely. Okay, now speaking of security, the only security you have when anchoring is the water between you and shore, and this can be a big issue. Years ago I was robbed while I was at anchor. Somebody saw them doing it, but they didn't realize they were actually robbing us. They used a cheap inflatable boat to do it. They took almost everything, including my outboard and even a half-full porta-potty. Ugh, that's so gross. I had locked the boat, but I was working regular schedule, and I think they had figured out my schedule. So they took their time doing it. There are methods of partially securing your boat while at anchor, but I'm going to make a video specifically on anchoring, and I'll include ways of securing your boat while at anchor on that video. I'm also in the future going to be doing videos, among others, on dinghies or yacht tenders and land transportation options. Okay, so far I've only done videos on general boat size and type and locations to keep it. Subscribe so you can see future, more detailed videos on the intricacies of living in a small boat, such as sleeping, storage, powering, electronics, plumbing, etc. And please remember to subscribe so you can see when they are uploaded. Thank you very much for watching. It's much appreciated.